In fact, I would say that dieting destroyed my relationship with food. All of the diets that I've been on, Special K, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, the Beachbody container diet, keto, South Beach. I've been on literally more diets than I can even count. And they actively destroyed the relationship that I had with food. It was already dysfunctional, don't get me wrong. I was binge eating and emotionally eating as a kid. But those diets only further destroyed my relationship with food. And if you have been chronically dieting for decades of your life, this episode is really going to help you change the relationship that you have with food so that if you decide to diet again, we can finally get to a point where we've lost the weight, we feel good in our bodies, we're living healthy lifestyles, and we can move on. Because as I've mentioned before, you are not here. Your sole purpose in life is not to lose weight. So if you want to create weight loss results and sustain those results, we have to make sure that while we are dieting, we are also actively working on improving the relationship we have with food. And that is exactly what I'm going to help you do inside of today's episode. Let's dive in. Hello, my love, and welcome back to another episode of the Queen of Pep Talks podcast. I hope that you are having the most amazing day ever. I want to start this episode by again just thanking you for your love and support and engagement here on YouTube. I don't know about you, but I personally am having so much fun creating for YouTube. It feels like such a fun platform for me to be able to truly share myself with you, and I'm so grateful for the love and support that you have provided to me here on the channel. If you have not already subscribed, it would mean so much to me if you took the time to subscribe to the channel. It also means so much for you guys to engage with the videos here on YouTube. I know that my community, we're like this, right? Like we're besties. You're in my DMs all the time. And I love and appreciate the conversations that we have so much. When you come into my DMs and you leave amazing messages for me to read and engage with you, it would mean the absolute world if you just copied that message and pasted it as a comment here on YouTube as well. That way we can help push the show, push the channel to people who are not already connected with me. Your engagement means the world to me. So thank you so much. I'm very excited for today's conversation because we're going to circle back a little bit. A couple of episodes ago, I talked to you about the differences between how I lost weight in 2016 versus how I'm losing weight now in 2026. And within that message, I really just kind of briefly glossed over your relationship with food and how it's really important if you want to lose weight this year that you create a healthier relationship with food that doesn't include all or nothing thinking, right? That's very important for you to learn how to do. And I said, that's an entirely different conversation for another time. Well, the good news is we are going to have that conversation today because the truth of the matter is, improving your relationship with food is one of the most important things that you will actually need to do on a weight loss journey. I do believe that there are some people who can go on a diet and lose weight and move on with their life after they've lost weight, and that's it. They wash their hands of the experience. It's like, cool, I restricted my calories, I lost weight, amazing. And then there are women like you and I who a calorie deficit in and of itself is not enough to create sustainable weight loss. Is it enough to create weight loss? Yeah, absolutely. Is it enough to create sustainable weight loss results that actually last? We're talking keeping 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 pounds off of your body. A calorie deficit, if you have a dysfunctional relationship with food, is not enough for you to create sustainable weight loss. So I want to talk to you today about how to improve your relationship with food because as an ex-binge eater, if you are new to my world, I struggled with binge eating and emotional eating for almost my entire life. I learned at a very young age, around 9 years old, that food was something that could make me feel better in my life. When my dad decided to leave my family and move to Louisiana and start a family of his own without us, I was absolutely devastated. And at that time, I didn't have the coping mechanisms to deal with everything that I was feeling as a young child. So I started turning to food to cope with what I was feeling. And I continued to turn to food to cope until I was nearly 30 years old. And it took years of me working on myself and really uncovering how to improve my relationship with food to be the woman that I am today, who is consistent in taking care of herself and has a really healthy relationship with food. I am I'm almost 8 years binge free, which is wild to say. I have not turned to food to cope with my emotions in almost 8 years. I have a very healthy and balanced and moderated relationship with food where I can eat a slice of pizza without it spiraling into, oh my gosh, I have to have the whole entire pizza. Or, oh my gosh, I'm a good girl or a bad girl based off of the way that I ate and now I need to sabotage myself. I really have given myself permission to eat the foods that I love, eat the foods that I enjoy, but to learn to be able to honor the hunger and fullness that I am experiencing, stop when I am satisfied, and even when I make choices that aren't the healthiest, because it's life, you're going to do that, I have the ability to simply move on and say that decision is in the past, and it doesn't need to spiral into days or weeks or months of me binge eating and sabotaging myself and the goals that I have for myself. I truly believe that if you want to create sustainable weight loss this year, you have to learn to not only, yes, eat in a calorie deficit to lose the weight, but if you don't actually change the way that you feel about food and the way that you think about food, how is your relationship with food going to be different when that diet comes to an end? Because as I mentioned in a previous episode, you are not meant to lose weight forever. You're meant to go through phases of losing weight, but eventually the diet comes to an end and you are meant to sustain a normal way of living, which means you're not obsessing over your calories, you're not constantly tracking things. You need to have a healthy relationship with food, one that doesn't feel restrictive, one that doesn't feel like you lose all control when you've eaten something that tastes really delicious, one that doesn't feel like there are weird rules and parameters around what you're allowed to eat and what you're not allowed to eat. And I want to help you today learn how to make peace with food and have a better relationship with food so that if you have a goal of losing weight this year or ever in your life, you're able to do so in a way that when you stop that diet, you're able to have a healthy relationship with food that allows you to maintain the weight that you've lost. Because what happened for me and what has happened for so many women that I've had the opportunity to work with and so many of the women who are in my world is they're good at losing weight because they know how to restrict themselves. But when the diet comes to an end, nothing has actually changed in terms of their relationship with food so that they know how to sustain and maintain the results that they've achieved because they just go right back to the old habits and patterns and behaviors that they had. That's what happened to me the first time that I lost 100 pounds. Literally, the day I stepped on the scale, I was like, I made it. Finally, this stupid diet is over. I don't have to do this anymore. I made it to my goal weight. But I hadn't learned anything about changing my relationship with food. So when I got to that goal weight, I went right back to all of the terrible habits and behaviors that I had before I started the diet. I went right back to being sedentary. I went right back to the McDonald's drive-thru. Love me a McDonald's drive-thru. I went right back to all of these terrible habits and behaviors that put me right back where I started, and I gained all of the weight back in less than a year. So truly, I want you to lose weight. I am not anti-diet. I do find myself in a very interesting place where I'm not anti-diet and I'm also not pro-diet culture because I believe that diet culture teaches us to believe that we cannot be happy within ourselves until we've lost X amount of weight or until we reach a certain level of thinness or smallness. I believe that diet culture wants to keep us unhappy so that we continue to strive to be smaller and smaller and smaller. But I do believe you're allowed to want to lose weight. You're allowed to want to transform your body. You're allowed to want to feel more confident and sexier and better in the skin that you're living in. You're allowed to want to feel like you can breathe more easily and move around more freely and reach down and tie your shoes without it feeling like it's making you out of breath. You're allowed to want to go on hikes with your family without feeling like you're going to die. And if losing weight is going to help you experience a life that is healthier and happier and more fulfilling, you absolutely are allowed to do that. But I do not believe that weight loss is the key to happiness. I also don't believe that weight loss in and of itself is the key to living in a happy and confident body. I also don't believe that weight loss in and of itself does anything to improve your relationship with food. In fact, I would say that dieting destroyed my relationship with food. All of the diets that I've been on, Special K, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, the Beachbody container diet, keto, South Beach. I've been on literally more diets than I can even count, and they actively destroyed the relationship that I had with food. It was already dysfunctional, don't get me wrong. I was binge eating and emotionally eating as a kid, but those diets only further destroyed my relationship with food. And if you have been chronically dieting for decades of your life, this episode is really going to help you change the relationship that you have with food so that if you decide to diet again, we can finally get to a point where we've lost the weight, we feel good in our bodies, we're living healthy lifestyles, and we can move on. Because as I've mentioned before, you are not here. Your sole purpose in life is not to lose weight. So if you want to create weight loss results and sustain those results, we have to make sure that while we are dieting, we are also actively working on improving the relationship we have with food. And that is exactly what I'm going to help you do inside of today's episode. Let's dive in. Okay, one of the first things that we need to do if we really want to create a healthier relationship with food that is going to allow us to sustain weight loss results or just feel better with food in general, because even if you don't want to lose weight, a healthier relationship with food is going to bring you so much peace in your life. I don't know about you, but I got to the point in my life where I was fucking exhausted from thinking about food in my body all the time. It was like, why is this the primary focus of my life? Don't I have more important things to worry about than eating and the size of my body and what people think about the size of my body and the number on the scale and eating and eating and eating and eating? I mean, I know I love food, but life is about a whole lot more than eating. So one of the things that we really need to work on doing is separating our self-worth from our relationship with food, because when we have our self-worth tied into the way that we eat, we start to identify ourselves as living life in seasons of being good girls and being bad girls. Even now, so this is a great example. And Oz, if you're the one that edits this, please know that I love you so much. I'm probably going to be the one that edits it, but please know I love you to absolute death. Oz and I made a commitment at the start of the year because, as I said, in 2025, girl, we were just eating and falling in love. We were eating and falling in love, eating and falling in love. In 2025, we were acting buck wild. So this year we made a commitment that we are going to eat healthier. We're going to cook more at home. We're going to stop eating out as much. And we're going to really work to live a healthier lifestyle, one that we were living before we started eating and falling in love. But there are times today, for example, we're driving home from the gym and we're like, what are we going to have for lunch? And he says, oh, I could really go for a slice of Gianni's, which is this pizza spot near us in Wilmington. He says, I could really go for a slice of Gianni's, but we've been so good lately, I really don't want to. And I said to him, can you please stop using that language about we've been so good lately? Like, we're good all of the time. Food is not a direct reflection of your worth as a human being. You are not, please, for the love of all things holy, hear me when I say this. Girl, you are not a good or bad person based off of what you are putting in your mouth. Why does my brain immediately go to nasty thoughts? You are not a good or bad person based off of what you are putting in your mouth, period. You are allowed to eat whatever you want, whenever you want, and the food that you consume has absolutely zero direct reflection to your worthiness as a human being. You are worthy and deserving and beautiful and loving and caring and special and fantastic and all of these amazing things, whether you eat McDonald's 3 times a day or whether you eat Whole Foods and that's it. I don't care what you are putting in your mouth. You're a worthy and deserving human being. If you want to have a healthy relationship with food, we have to stop with the good food, good girl, bad girl. We've got to stop with it. You've not been good if you are eating salads and protein and chicken and rice and veggies. That doesn't make you a good person. Being a good person means that you're loving and caring and empathetic and considerate and kind and compassionate. That's what makes you a good person. Being a bad person doesn't come from eating McDonald's. It comes from talking shit about people. It comes from being inconsiderate. It comes from being rude. It comes from a lot of things, but it does not come from eating McDonald's. So we have to work on creating separation between our self-worth and what we are putting in our mouths if we want to have a healthier relationship with food, okay? Okay, the second thing that we need to do is this ties really directly into changing our narrative around our worthiness and the way that we show up with food is we have to begin to change the language that we use when it comes to food. So I used a really great example of saying that you've been good if you've not been eating out, or if you're telling yourself that you've been bad because you've eaten Oreos or cheesecake or pizza or ice cream or whatever it is, you are going to internalize those words, internalize that language, and it is going to create feelings within you. And if you're unfamiliar with my work and you're unfamiliar with the idea of the thought result cycle, I encourage you to look into it or dive more deeply into the work that I do with my clients. But it's this idea that the thoughts that we have within ourselves, they create feelings, and those feelings drive actions. The way that you think is going to directly impact the way that you show up in your life. So if you're thinking to yourself that I'm a bad girl for eating pizza, and I guarantee that this has happened to you in your life, if you're telling yourself that you've been a bad girl for eating pizza, and you're an emotional eater especially, you tell yourself that you've been bad, what does that make you feel? It certainly doesn't make you feel good to tell yourself you've been bad. It makes you feel bad about yourself. And those bad and negative feelings, guess what? You are going to want to find a way to cope with them. And if you're an emotional eater, then turning to food is probably how you're going to cope with those emotions. The way that you speak to yourself is going to directly impact the way that you show up in your life. If you want to have a healthier relationship with food or a healthier relationship with anything in general in your life, you have to change the way that you are speaking about it. If you speak negatively about something all of the time, whether it's your job, your partner, your friends, your boss, yourself, your body, food, no matter what it is, if you are talking negatively about something all of the time, how on God's green earth do you expect to feel good about it? If your entire narrative is you yapping about how terrible things are, or how bad things are, or how much you hate this or you hate that, or how much you don't feel good about this or don't feel good about that, how are you ever supposed to be happy in your life if your entire internal self-talk and narrative is one of negativity? Is one that doesn't align with you feeling good in your life. If you want to feel better about things in your life, you have to start focusing on the good things and speaking really highly about those things. So if you want to have a healthier relationship with food, one of the first things that I did when I wanted to stop binge eating was I created a mantra for myself. And this is a mantra that I have kept on repeat for the last 8 years of my life. You ready for it? Very simple. Feel free to steal it. I am an intuitive eater who respects her body. Period. I am an intuitive eater who respects her body. I was still binge eating when I started saying this mantra to myself, but I knew if I want to change the way that I feel about food and I want to change how I show up with food, I have to change the way that I talk to myself about my relationship with food. So I'm going to encourage you very lovingly and very kindly and very gently, watch your fucking language when it comes to the relationship that you have with food. Okay? Okay, the third thing that we need to do, and this one is really important, and I believe that this should be a priority in your life from this day moving forward. I know that a lot of us, myself included, have masked a desire for thinness with a desire to be healthy. We say things like, I want to be healthy. And we walk around and we say, well, I just want to be healthier. That's why I'm making these choices. I just want to be healthier. But is it actually being healthier that you really want? I want you to take a step back and ask yourself, am I doing things to truly be healthy? Or am I doing things because I desire to be skinny? Am I doing these things because I desire to be thin? Am I doing these things because I desire to lose weight? When you can make a shift, this is the third thing we need to do. When you can make a shift in prioritizing your health and your wellness and your well-being over simply a desire to be thin or a desire to be skinny or a desire to lose weight, you are going to be so much more successful. Because yes, you're going to improve the relationship we have with food, but also you're going to create a lifestyle that is sustainable because your health has actually become a priority. If being smaller is the only priority, what happens when you reach that place of smallness? If you are only exercising and eating healthy because you see the number on the scale going down, what happens when that number on the scale stops going down? Do you go right back to the habits and routines that you had before you went on this weight loss journey? If so, you're going to end up right back where I started, which is gaining every single pound and then some. We have to learn to prioritize our health and our well-being over just thinness, because the truth of the matter is, I had to learn this a very hard way, and I don't want you to have to learn it the same way. Whatever you are doing to lose weight, you are going to have to do something very similar in order to maintain that weight loss, which is why in a previous episode, I talked to you about not wanting to starve myself thin and really wanting to eat as much as possible. Because when I get to a place where I've lost the 10 pounds that I want to lose, the last thing that I want to do is have to eat 1,200 calories a day to maintain that. That's not what I want for myself. Whatever you're doing to lose weight, you're going to have to do something very, very similar in order to maintain it. So when we take an approach of actually caring about our health and our wellness, we're going to make choices that align with us being the healthiest versions of ourselves. If I was to go back and reflect on the first time I lost weight at 19 years old, and I was to have an honest conversation with myself, I was telling people I wanted to be healthier. And sure, maybe a part of me did, but the primary thing that I wanted was to be skinny, because if I looked at my habits and routines where I'm Tae-Boing 2 hours a day and I'm eating nothing but Special K cereal, like a max of 800 calories a day, is that actually healthy? Absolutely not. That is nowhere close to healthy. I was probably eating like 20 grams of protein a day. Like, that is sad. It is so sad to think about the way that I was living. And I was masking this desire for thinness with a desire to be healthy. So I know that you want to be smaller. I know that you want to lose weight, but that can't be the number one priority. The number one priority has to be feeling healthier, being healthier, being able to be more active, being able to live a lifestyle that feels really good for you. We have to make sure that the priorities are changed and thinness moves to the bottom of the list because it's not that important. You being happy, important. You being healthy, important. You feeling confident, important. But being thin, it's not that important. Okay, the next thing that we need to do, and again, this is one of my favorites. Have you heard of boundaries? I'm sure that you have. You've probably heard of boundaries in relationships. Maybe you're setting boundaries with your boyfriend. Maybe you're setting boundaries with your parents. Maybe you set boundaries with your kids. Maybe you set boundaries with your boss. Have you set boundaries with food? Probably not, because nobody's really talking about this. You are allowed to set boundaries for yourself when it comes to the way that you eat. And I suggest that you do it. Boundaries are what you are going to tolerate and what you are not going to tolerate. And you have to get very honest with yourself and take a long, hard look at the habits and behaviors that you are currently participating in and asking yourself, which of these things align with me being the healthiest version of myself that I'm craving to be? Which of these habits align with me living in the body that I really want to live in? If you were to wake up tomorrow morning living in your dream body, are you a woman who has the capacity to sustain the habits and routines that created that body? If I handed you your dream body tomorrow and you got to wake up looking as fly as you wanted, are you a woman who has the capacity to handle the standards and routines that are going to help you maintain that body? You have to get honest with yourself and take a long, hard look at the way that you show up in your life and ask yourself, do these things align with me living in the body that I want to live in? And if the answer is no to some of them, you have to set better boundaries with yourself. You don't need to be sitting on the couch eating Doritos straight from the bag while binge watching Love Island. Some of my favorite things. I love Doritos and Love Island. But if that doesn't align with you being the version of yourself that you want to be, you need to set a boundary with yourself. And this is very challenging, especially when it comes to self-induced boundaries, because when you've set the boundary, you're the one who also has to maintain it. You're the one who has to hold it. You're the one who has to oblige by it. You're the one who has to set the boundary and enforce it and participate in making sure that we're aligning ourselves with that boundary. It's very challenging. But where in your life, when it comes to food, do you just have no boundaries at all? Do you stand in front of the refrigerator and just eat mindlessly? I did. Does that align with you being the woman that you want to be? Probably not. Do you go through the drive-thru on your way home even though you know you're coming home to cook dinner? I used to. Does that align with you being the woman that you want to be? Do you bring snacks to the couch and get lost in TV for an hour while finishing them? Does that align with you being the woman that you want to be? Once you put your kids to bed as your me time, are you gorging yourself in 2 pints of Ben & Jerry's? I don't even have kids, and 2 pints of Ben & Jerry's used to be my nightcap. Where are you needing to set better boundaries with yourself around what you will tolerate and what you will not tolerate when it comes to your relationship with food? Boundaries create healthy relationships. And the truth of the matter is, you may not realize it because many of the women in my world don't. You have a relationship with food. You may not have a lot of awareness around it right now. But if you were to spend some time reflecting on how do I feel about food? How do I think about food? How does food make me feel? Those are things that are required within a relationship. It's a one-way street with a relationship with food because food's not doing anything. You're the one that's creating that relationship. But the powerful thing is because you're the one that's created that relationship in and of yourself, that means that you also get to be the one that changes that relationship within yourself. You don't need permission from anybody or anything outside of you to change the boundaries and standards that you have with food. Okay? The next thing that we need to do to create a healthier relationship with food is I want you to begin bringing mindfulness and intentionality into your relationship with food. And these might not be terms that you're incredibly familiar with, but you can do some research on them. But I'm going to talk you through how I recommend bringing mindfulness and intentionality to your relationship with food specifically. But these two things are very important. If you are like me, you may be a person who now, I used to do this in the past, I would literally black out when I was eating. Like I could not wait to eat, to the point that when I sat down to eat or I stood at my counter to shove food down my throat, I would go elsewhere. Like my brain would literally go elsewhere. And I'm like blacked out just shoveling food down my throat as fast as I possibly can. And this is not a healthy way for you to live your life when it comes to food. I began to study intuitive eating and I began to really understand how important it is for me to be present and aware while I am eating so that I can slow down and actually taste what I'm eating and enjoy what I'm eating. And we're going to talk about eating satiating meals shortly and eating the foods that you enjoy. But we have to learn to practice mindfulness and intentionality. So the first thing that I would recommend you do is when you're getting ready to sit down with a meal, I want you to sit down with your meal, get a fork, get your place setting, get your drink, get your water, whatever you have in front of you. And I want you to take a long, deep breath. If you're like me, you probably feel a lot of urgency with food, where it's like, oh my gosh, food is in front of me. I have to eat it now. Like, are you picking food off your plate before you've even sat down? When you sit down for a meal, and you should be sitting down for a meal, no more standing at the counter, no more picking while you're at the stove, no more standing in front of the fridge and blacking out while you're eating. We're sitting down and we're going to be intentional. We're going to get our place setting, we're going to have our water, we're going to have our fork, and we're going to take a long, deep breath. And we're going to sit there for 30 seconds and we're going to look at our food. And we're going to admire our food. I hope that you've plated it up real pretty, because that's something that has certainly helped me, taking the time to plate my food really nicely. We're going to take a long, deep breath and we're going to set an intention for this meal. And you're going to decide what that intention is, whatever feels good for you. Maybe it's, I'm going to take my time with this meal. Maybe it's, I'm going to enjoy and savor every bite. Maybe it's, I'm going to honor my fullness. And when I start to feel satiated, I'm going to stop eating. It doesn't matter what the intention is. It needs to be one that is true to you and feels good for you. But you're going to take 30 seconds before your meal and set an intention. And when it comes to mindfulness, the intention behind mindfulness is for you to really connect with what you are feeling. So the intentionality is deciding, how do I want to behave while I sit down and eat? The mindfulness is, how do I want to feel while I am experiencing eating this meal? So something that really helped me in the beginning, especially as an emotional eater, was checking in with my emotions before I actually started eating so that I could make sure I'm not trying to soothe some kind of emotion before I eat a meal or a snack. Checking in with my emotions and seeing how I'm feeling. Eating half of my meal, pausing and checking in and saying, how am I feeling right now? Am I still feeling stressed? Am I still feeling overwhelmed? What is it that I am experiencing? The more present you can be with your food, the more you are going to enjoy it. The more you enjoy your food, the more likely it is that you are going to stop when you are satisfied, because you've learned to actually be present in the action of eating. Mindless eating, not good for you. If you're a person who has struggled with not having consciousness while eating, like you literally go somewhere else, setting an intention and practicing mindfulness is going to change your relationship with food drastically. If there's one thing that you take away from this episode, I encourage you to allow this to be it, because it's such an amazing strategy to shift the way that you feel when it comes to food and shift the way that you actually show up when it comes to the way that you're eating. And the sixth and final piece that I want to talk about when it comes to improving your relationship with food is making sure that you are eating satiating meals and incorporating the foods that you love. I touched on this in a prior episode, but I want to give it a little bit more attention because it is so incredibly important for you to be putting food in front of you that you actually like. I had a client recently who came to me and said, like, I keep trying to incorporate carrot sticks into my diet, and I don't know why, because I actually fucking hate carrot sticks. Stop trying to force yourself to eat foods that you don't like. One of the intuitive eating principles that I resonate with so much is learning to find satisfaction in food. And what that meant for me is really learning to decide, I can eat healthy foods that I love. I can eat unhealthy foods that I love. I do not have to eat things that I don't like in order to be my healthiest version of myself. You don't have to eat foods that you hate in order to lose weight. You actually should be incorporating the foods that you love on a consistent basis. Make sure that you're eating satiating meals, which means including foods that you really like, but also having real meals. You are not going to have a healthy relationship with food if all you're doing is snacking all day. Have you ever felt like you get to the end of the day and it's 5 p.m. and you're like, I haven't eaten anything all day, because you haven't sat down and actually done what I talked about in the last step, being mindful and intentional with your food? But if you were actually look at what you ate all day, you had 500 calorie drink from Starbucks plus a cake pop. Doesn't really feel like eating, but close to 1,000 calories between those two items. Then maybe you grabbed Pop-Tarts while you were at your desk, another 400 calories. You could have ingested 3,000 calories without actually feeling like you've eaten anything because you're not choosing foods that are satiating. You're not choosing high protein options. You're not putting foods on a plate. You're not being intentional, and you're not being mindful. If you want to have a healthier relationship with food this year, you have to choose to eat satiating foods. Okay. I know that changing your relationship with food is hard because I've done it. If you want someone to tell you that this work is easy, I'm not the one, because I'm not going to tell you it's easy to change decades of dysfunctional relationship with food. If you've been binge eating or emotionally eating or overeating or stress eating for your entire life, it is going to feel challenging to change some of your habits and behaviors. But you are so capable of doing so, and I need you to know that you deserve to live a life where you experience peace and freedom with food, because food consuming your thoughts all day long, your body consuming your thoughts all day long, it is not healthy for you. I don't want to encourage you to obsess over weight loss or transforming your body, but if you are in a place where you want to do those things, you want to lose weight and you want to transform your body, I am going to highly encourage you to take the things that I talked to you about today into consideration, because without creating a healthier relationship with food, the weight loss that you are creating right now is very, very, very unlikely to stick. You are likely going to put all of the weight that you gained back on because you need to change the relationship and dynamic that you have with food. So when the diet comes to an end, you behave differently. Okay. If you loved this episode, it would mean the absolute world to me if you took the time to leave a comment on this episode. As I mentioned in the very beginning of this episode, it truly does mean so much to me to see you guys engaging with this work here on YouTube. I'm loving it. I know that you're loving it. Leave comments and let me know that you're loving it, okay? Please like the video as well and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss future episodes. If you're listening on the Purple Podcast app or on Spotify, you can leave a rating and review, or on Spotify, you can engage with the Q&A feature. I love hearing from you guys, and I'm just so appreciative. I hope that you guys have the most amazing day ever, and I will talk to you on next week's episode on the Queen of Pep Talks podcast. See ya.